Hello humans, welcome back to Your Thoughts Are Valid and I hope you all are doing great. So today we are going to learn another theory of personality which was given by Harry Stack Sullivan. So his lifespan was from 1892 to 1949. So first let's understand a bit about Harry Stack Sullivan, know about him a bit. So he was an American psychiatrist and psychoanalyst who significantly influenced the fields of psychiatry, psychology, and psychotherapy. He is best known for his pioneering work in interpersonal theory, which emphasized the importance of social interactions and relationships in shaping an individual's personality and mental health. He challenged many aspects of traditional psychoanalysis. He believed that understanding the individual solely through intrapsychic conflicts and drives was insufficient, and that the social context in which a person exists is crucial for grasping human behavior. He developed his interpersonal theory, also known as interpersonal psychiatry, to address this aspect comprehensively. Okay, so this is about Harry Stack Sullivan background. So basically, his theory is known as interpersonal psychiatry. Okay, so let's understand his theory in detail. So, according to Harry Stack Sullivan, what was the structure of personality? So, Sullivan insisted that personality is a hypothetical entity. Hypothetical entity means it's an illusion, okay, not reality. So, it's like hypothetical entity and illusion that cannot be studied. According to him, personality cannot be studied apart from interpersonal situations. Like, we can only study personality only from the context of interpersonal situations. Other than that, it doesn't really exist on its own. Okay, so for Sullivan, he believed that an individual behaves according to interpersonal situations. Okay, from that personality arises. Personality is like an illusion without it. So the unit of a study is the interpersonal situation and not the person. So for him, we need to study the situation instead of the person because personality doesn't exist on its own. It is it changes as the context changes. Okay, then personality only manifests itself when a person is behaving in relation to one or more individuals. In fact, these people may not even present. They can be illusory or non-existent figures. So, according to Sullivan, personality only manifests itself when a person is behaving in relation to other individuals. Okay, when there is interpersonal situation, when there are two or more people involved. So, according to him, if a person is alone, there is no personality which exists. So, in fact, these people may need not even present. Okay, so it's like the other individuals we are talking about here, they do not need to be present there. They can be just in illusion, or we can just say that they are non-existent figures, but still they are there. Like, in your brain, in your mind, those people exist. Only then your personality exists. If these people won't exist, your personality won't exist. So Sullivan granted that although personality is hypothetical, he did assert that it is the dynamic center of various processes that occurs in a series of interpersonal fields. Okay, so although Sullivan did say that that personality is hypothetical, but he did give the assertion that like personality is the dynamic center of various processes that occur in a series of interpersonal fields. So, what are interpersonal fields? Interpersonal fields are the dynamic social environment. Okay, dynamic social environment in which individuals interact and form relationships. Individual interact and form relationships. basically all the social situations you have been a part of, or you are a part of, or you will be a part of, those are known as interpersonal fields. Sullivan proposed that human behavior and personality are deeply influenced by the ongoing interaction with others, and these interactions takes place within a specific social context. Okay, so Sullivan proposed that human behavior and personality, these are deeply influenced and they are interrelated, human behavior as well as personality, and uh, the interaction that takes place, it depends on the social context. Okay, like it is a specific for a particular social context, it would be different for another social context. Okay, now let's move on. Process of personality, or we can call this process as dynamism. A dynamism is a smallest unit that can be employed in the study of the individual. According to Sullivan, dynamism can be defined as the relatively enduring pattern of energy transformation which recurrently characterize the organism in its duration as a living organism. So dynamism is the smallest unit which we use when we are about to study an individual. According to Sullivan, dynamism, we can define dynamism as relatively enduring pattern of energy transformation, which recurrently characterize organism in its duration as a living organism. Then energy transformation is any form of behavior. Okay, energy transformation is any form of behavior. It may be overt and public like talking, or covert and private like thinking and fantasizing. So transformation can be in any form of behavior. It might be overt and public like you can talk, or it can be covert and private like you are just thinking and fantasizing. So basically, it is just the dynamism is nothing but the enduring pattern of energy transformation. Okay. So you might be confused about dynamism, like what is it? Because the definition is quite difficult to understand. So in easy language, dynamism is basically a typical behavioral pattern that characterize a person throughout a lifetime. Okay, like any behavior which is typical. You typically behave in that particular way, and you are usually known by those characteristics. So any typical behavior or typical behavioral patterns that characterize a person throughout lifetime, that is known as dynamism. Okay, so the ways in which an individual typically meets his or her needs or deals with anxiety, that is dynamism. Okay, so I hope this definition gives you a clear concept of dynamism. When you are writing the definition in your exam, please do write the definition given in the PPT written here, and not the one I'm telling you. I'm telling this one so that it is you can easily understand what dynamism is. Okay. So yeah, we studied about energy transformation. Then dynamism that are distinctively human in character are those that characterize one's interpersonal relations. One may behave in a habitually hostile way toward a certain person or group of persons, which is an expression of dynamism of bitterness. A man who tends to seek out libidinous relationship with women displays a dynamism of lust. A child who is afraid of strangers has a dynamism of fear. Okay, so basically, dynamisms that are distinctively human in character, like it is found in almost every human being are those that characterize one's interpersonal relations. So these are from the context of interpersonal relations itself. For example, when we are talking about dynamism of bitterness, we can say someone is bitter if they behave in hostile way usually with people around them. So then we can say that a person has a dynamism of bitterness. That is personality of bitterness or habit of being bitter. A man who tends to seek out libidinous relationship with women, we can say that person is showing dynamism of lust. Okay, character of lust. A child who is afraid of strangers, we can say that he is having dynamism of fear. Any habitual reaction towards one or more person, whether it be in form of feeling, attitude, or overt action, constitutes a dynamism. All people have same basic dynamism, but the mode of expression can vary in accordance with situation and the life experience of the individual. So it can be in the form of feeling or attitude or overt actions. Dynamism can be in the form of feeling, attitude, or behavior. But all people have same basic dynamism, like same basic characters or personality. But the mode of expression, the mode of expressing those characters can vary. Uh, and it will depend on the situation and also the life experience that individual has had. So now let's understand zone of dynamism. So a dynamism usually employs a particular zone of the body such as mouth, hands, anus, and genitals by means of which interacts with the environment. Okay. So usually when you have to show a character or your personality or dynamism, you usually need a particular zone of the body, either mouth or hands or anus or genitals, so that you can interact with the environment. A zone consists of receptor apparatus for receiving stimuli, an effector apparatus for performing action, and a connecting apparatus called educators in the CNS that connects the receptor and effector mechanism. Most dynamisms serve the purpose of satisfying the basic needs of the organism. There is an important dynamism that develops as a result of anxiety called the dynamism of self or the self system. Okay, so like dynamism that develops as a result of anxiety, which is known as dynamism of self or self system, that is different. Okay, we will read about that in detail. But the other dynamisms which serve the purpose of satisfying the basic needs of an organism. Okay, so those dynamism can be of bitterness, intimacy, love, or whatever character the person is having. Okay. So, for example, let's take intimacy. So, intimacy grows out of the earlier needs for tenderness, but is more specific and involves a close interpersonal relationship between two people who are more or less of equal status. Intimacy must not be confused with sexual interest. Okay, in fact, it develops prior to puberty, ideally during pre-adolescence, when it usually exists between two children, each of whom sees the other as a person of equal value. Because intimacy is a dynamism that requires an equal partnership, it does not usually exist in parent-child relationship unless both are adults and see one another as equals. Intimacy is an integrating dynamism that tends to draw out loving reactions from the other person, thereby decreasing anxiety and loneliness. Two extremely painful experiences. Because intimacy helps us avoid anxiety and loneliness, it is rewarding experience that most healthy people desire. Okay, so here we just understood about dynamism of intimacy. So now let's move on to the self system. Okay. Anxiety is a product of interpersonal relations, being transmitted originally from the mother to the infant and later in life by threats to one's security. To avoid or minimize actual or potential anxiety, people adopt various types of protective measures and supervisory controls over their behavior. These security measures form the self system that sanctions certain form of behavior. The good me self forbids other forms of behavior. The bad me self and excludes from consciousness is still other forms that are too alien and disgusting to even be considered. The not me self. The self system is a filter of awareness, refusing to attend to stimuli that are anxiety generating. Since the self guards the person from anxiety, it is held in high esteem and is protected from criticism. The more experiences people have with anxiety, the more inflated their self system becomes, and the more it becomes dissociated from the rest of the personality. Okay. So the self system is like the most complex and inclusive of all dynamism. It it is basically a consistent pattern of behavior that maintains people's interpersonal security by protecting them from anxiety. So, as we studied about intimacy, self system is a conjunctive dynamism that arises out of the interpersonal situation. But it develops earlier than intimacy. Like in the dynamism of intimacy develops later. We will study that in the last because that's really not important, or it's not usually asked in the exams. But yeah, the dynamism of intimacy develops later. And like basically the dynamism of self develops earlier than intimacy at about age 12 to 18 months. Okay, so as children develop intelligence and foresight, they become able to learn which behaviors are related to an increase or decrease in anxiety. This ability to detect slight increase or decrease in anxiety provides self system with a built-in warning device. Okay, the warning, however, is a mixed blessing. On one hand, it serves as a signal, alerting people to increasing anxiety and giving them an opportunity to protect themselves. On the other hand, this desire for protection against anxiety makes the self system resistant to change and prevents people from profiting from anxiety filled experiences. The primary task of self system is to protect people against anxiety. It is the principal stumbling block to favorable changes in personality. But Sullivan believed that personality is not static and is especially open to change at the beginning of the various stages of development. Okay, so I hope the self system is clear to you. Moving on, process of personality, which we also call as personification. So, a personification is the image that an individual has of him or herself or of another person. Okay. It is a complex of feelings, attitudes, and conceptions that grows out of experience with need satisfaction and anxiety. Any interpersonal relationship that involves satisfaction tends to build a favorable picture of the satisfying agent. On the other hand, if the relationship evokes anxiety, it tends to develop an unfavorable image. These personifications are rarely accurate description of the people whom they refer. However, once formed, they usually persist and influence our attitudes towards other people. For example, a person who personifies his or her father as a mean and dictatorial man may project same personification onto other older men, such as their teachers, police officers, and employers. Same phenomena applies for the personification of self. Good me personification results from interpersonal relations that are rewarding, and bad me from anxiety arousing situations. Personifications are shared by a number of people are called stereotypes. For example, unconventional artist, hard-headed businessman, loving mother, notorious criminal. Okay. So personification basically begins in infancy and continue throughout the various developmental stages. people acquire certain image of themselves and others, and these images are called as personifications, and usually they are not accurate because they are colored by people's needs and anxieties. So usually, Sullivan described three basic personifications that develop during infancy, usually bad mother, good mother, and me. In addition, some children acquire an eidetic personification during childhood. Okay, so although I have not mentioned it here, you should just understand the concept of bad mother, good mother, and me. So Sullivan's notion of the bad mother and good mother is similar to Clean's concept of the bad breast and good breast. So the bad mother personification, in fact, grows out of the infant's experiences with the bad nipple. That is, the nipple does not satisfy hunger need. Whether the nipple belongs to the mother or a bottle held by mother, the father, a nurse, or anyone else is not important. Bad mother personification is almost completely undifferentiated in as much as it includes everyone involved in the nursing situation. It is not an accurate image of the real mother, but merely the infant's vague representation of not being properly fed. After the bad mother personification is formed, an infant will acquire a good mother personification based on the tender and cooperative behaviors of the mothering figure. These two personification, one based on the infant's perception of an anxious malevolent mother and other on a calm, tender mother, combine to form a complex personification composed of contrasting qualities projected onto the same person. Until the infant develops language, however, these two opposing images of mother can easily coexist. Me personification during mid infancy, a child acquires three me personification: bad me, good me, and not me, that form the building block of the self personification. Okay, so we have already studied about good me, bad me. So, bad me personification is fashioned from experiences of punishment and disapproval that infants receive from their mothering one. The resulting anxiety is strong enough to teach infants that they are bad, but it is not so severe to cause the experience to be dissociated or selectively inattended. Good me personification results from infants' experience with rewards and approval, and not sudden severe anxiety, however, may cause an infant to form not me personification and to either dissociate or selectively inattend experiences related to that anxiety. Okay, so this is about uh, personifications in Sullivan's theory of interpersonal psychiatry. Then there is another concept which is known as cognitive processes. So Sullivan proposed three modes of experience: prototaxic, parataxic, and syntaxic. What is prototaxic mode? It is the most primitive and basic mode of experience. In this mode, individuals' perception is fragmented and unorganized. It involves a stream of sensory experiences and sensations without clear connection or structure. It is akin to an infant's early experience before they can form coherent thoughts or narratives. Prototexic mode of experience is largely pre-verbal and involves sensory experiences and bodily sensations. Parataxic mode of experience represent a transitional stage between prototaxic and syntaxic modes. In this mode, individuals begin to make association and connection between events based on temporary or spatial proximity rather than logical reasoning. These associations are not necessarily based on objective reality or causality, but are rather subjective and based on personal experiences and emotions. The parataxic mood is seen in early childhood and in certain types of interpersonal interactions, where people may perceive connection between events that are not logically related. Sullivan believed much of our thinking may not advance parataxic thinking. For example, superstitions. Then there is syntaxic mode of experience. It is the most advanced and organized mode of perception and cognition. In this mode, individuals can think and communicate in a logical and coherent manner. It involves the use of language, abstract thinking, and the ability to consider complex relationships between events and ideas. Syntactic mode is characterized by the use of symbols, concepts, and logical reasoning to understand and interpret the world and social interactions. Let's understand this once again, okay, because this might be a bit confusing. So first, let's start with prototexic level. So as we said that these are the most earliest and primitive experience of an infant. Because these experiences cannot be communicated to others, they are difficult to describe or define. One way to understand the term is to imagine the earliest subjective experience of a newborn baby. These experiences must in some way relate to different zones of the body. For example, a neonate feels hunger and pain, and these prototaxic experience result in observable action, for example, sucking or crying. The infant does not know the reason for the action and sees no relationship between these actions and being fed. As undifferentiated experiences, prototexic events are beyond conscious recall. Okay. In adults, prototexic experiences take the form of momentary sensation, images, feelings, mood, impression. These primitive images of dream and waking life are dimly perceived or completely unconscious. Although people are incapable of communicating these images to others, they can sometimes tell another person that they have just had a strange sensation, one they cannot put into words. Then paratexic mode of experience. So these are pre-logical and usually result when a person assumes a cause and effect relationship between two events that occur coincidentally. These are more clearly differentiated than prototexic experience, but still, their meaning remains private. They can be communicated to others, but in a distorted fashion. An example can be when a child is conditioned to say please in order to receive candy. If candy and please occur together a number of times, the child may eventually reach the illogical conclusion that her supplications caused the candy's appearance. This conclusion is paratexic distortion, or we can say an illogical belief that a cause and effect relationship exists between two events in close temporal proximity. However, uttering the word please does not by itself cause the candy to appear. A dispensing person must be present who hears the word and is able and willing to honor the request. When no such person is present, a child may ask God or imaginary people to grant favors. A good bit of adult behavior comes from similar paradoxic thinking. Then syntactic mode of experience. So experiences that are consensually validated and that can be symbolically communicated takes place on a syntactic level. Consensually validated experiences are those on whose meaning two or more persons agree. Words, for example, are consensually validated because different people more or less agree on their meaning. Most common symbols used by one person to communicate with another are those of language, including words and gestures. So Sullivan hypothesized that the first instance of syntaxic cognition appears whenever a sound or gesture begins to have the same meaning for parents as it does for a child. In summary, Sullivan identified two kinds of experiences, tensions and energy transformations. So we will study about tensions in the next slide. So I hope here till here you are clear with the three modes of experiences, prototaxic, parataxic, and syntaxic. Moving on to the dynamics of personality, there is a concept of tension, which we will study now. So yes, tension can be regarded as needs for particular energy transformation that will dissipate the tension, often with an accompanying change of mental state, a change of awareness, to which we can apply the general term satisfaction. Two main sources of tension are tension that arises from the needs of an organism and tension that result from an anxiety. Another concept is energy transformation. So, energy is transformed by performing work. Work may be overt action or it may be mental. These overt or covert activities have a singular goal, which is to relieve tension. Sullivan did not believe that instincts are important sources of human motivation, and he did not accept the libido theory of Freud. According to him, an individual learns to behave in a particular way as a result of interaction with people and not because he or she possesses innate imperatives for certain kind of action. So, to summarize, Sullivan identified two kinds of experiences, tensions and energy transformations. Tensions or potentiality for action includes needs and anxiety, whereas needs are helpful or conjunctive when satisfied, anxiety is always disjunctive, interfering with the satisfaction of needs and disrupting interpersonal relations. Energy transformations literally involve transformation of potential energy into actual energy for the purpose of satisfying needs or reducing anxiety. Some of these behaviors form consistent patterns of behavior called dynamism. Sullivan also recognized three levels of cognition: prototaxic, parataxic, syntaxic. So, yeah, we have studied about those in detail previously. So tensions are not the tension means nothing but potential for action. Okay, here tension mean potential for action. Okay, so here we studied about two things, needs and anxiety. So needs are usually conjunctive, that is, they help integrate personality. General needs facilitate overall well-being of a person. These can be interpersonal, for example, intimacy, love, tenderness, or physiological like food, oxygen, water, and so forth. There are also zonal needs involved here, which may also satisfy general needs, for example, oral, genital, manual. And anxiety, which is disjunctive in nature, which means it interferes with the satisfaction of needs. So, energy transformations, these can be overt or covert actions designed to satisfy needs or to reduce anxiety. Some energy transformation become relatively consistent patterns of behavior called dynamism. We have already studied about dynamism. Dynamism is nothing but trait or behavioral pattern. Okay, it can be anything. Usually, the three dynamism that Sullivan gave are malevolence, intimacy, and lust. Okay, you can, although I haven't mentioned it in the PPT because it hasn't been asked and this theory is not that famous, but you can remember that Sullivan gave three dynamisms. First is malevolence, which means a feeling of living in enemy country. Then intimacy, an integrating experience marked by a close personal relationship with another person who is more or less of equal status. And lust, which means an isolating dynamism characterized by an impersonal sexual interest in another person. And then we also studied about levels of cognition, where we studied about prototaxic, that means experiences that are completely personal. We studied about parataxic, which means pre-logical experience that are communicated to others only in a distorted fashion. And then we studied about syntaxic mode. So here it means basically consensually validated experiences that can be accurately communicated to others. So now let's just move on to the last part of this theory, which is the stages of development of personality. So Sullivan postulated seven epochs, or we can say seven stages of development, each crucial to the formation of human personality. Thread of interpersonal relations runs throughout the stages. Other people are indispensable to a person's development from infancy to mature adulthood. Personality change can take place at any time, but it is most likely to occur during the transition from one stage to the next. In fact, three threshold periods are more crucial than the stages itself. Experiences previously dissociated or selectively inattended may enter into the self system during one of the transitional periods. Sullivan hypothesized that As one passes over one of these or more less determinable thresholds of a developmental era, everything that has gone before becomes reasonably open to influence. So the 7 stages given by him include infancy, childhood, juvenile era, pre-adolescence, early adolescence, and late adolescence. So the age of infancy is 0 to 2. For childhood, it is 2 to 6. For juvenile, it's 6 to 8.5. Then pre-adolescence, it's 8.5 to 13. Early adolescence, it's 13 to 15, and late adolescence, it's 15 onwards. So he also gave the significant other in every stage, because here we talked about interpersonal relations. So in infancy, significant other is mother. In childhood, it's parents. Then in juvenile era, it's playmates. Then in pre-adolescence, it's single chum. Then in early adolescence, it's several chums, and in late adolescence, it's lover. What are the interpersonal processes involved? In infancy, it's tenderness. Uh, then in just a minute, yeah. Then in childhood, it's imaginary playmates. In juvenile era, it's living with peers. In pre-adolescence, it's intimacy. In early adolescence, it's intimacy and lust. And in late adolescence, it's fusion of intimacy and lust. What are the learnings? In infancy, good or bad? In childhood, syntaxic language. In juvenile area, competition, compromise, cooperation. In pre-adolescence, affection and respect. In early adolescence, balance, security, operation. And in late adolescence, discovery of self and world. So these are the stages of development as given by Sullivan. So yeah, that is it for today's video. If you have any doubt, please do ask in the comment section. And because this theory is a bit complicated to understand, I'm attaching one PDF where you can understand a concept in detail. So you can refer to that PDF, and I will also attach the PPT in the description below. So you can refer to the PPT as well as to the PDF to understand this theory in detail. So yeah, that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching.